Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Pizza Buffet Week 12 in the NFL here on Forward Progress, presented by Fanduel. I'm Rob Pizzola. I'm here with you for the next hour, breaking down the entirety of today's NFL card, sides, totals, player props. We'll try to do some anytime touchdowns at the end. Good morning, everyone in the chat. Carlos, Free 88, Patrick, John, Sam, Anthony, Glenn, Michael. Good to see everyone in here this morning. We're also streaming live on Twitter right now. If you're watching on Twitter, that's fine. If you do want to get your questions answered and participate in the conversation, hop over to our YouTube channel, Forward Progress, as there's a lot going on in real time. I was up pretty late last night watching the Las Vegas Grand Prix, so I got a late start this morning. I'm going to need some help from the chat as we go on here. In case I've missed anything, I think I'm caught up. I think I'm good to go. But as always, you see some breaking news, drop it in the chat. I can at least react to it in real time. If I've already covered that game, I can respond to it as well. Per usual, I'm not going to give picks on games. It's not what I do here on Sunday morning. I think this is the worst time that you could be betting the NFL. Try to bet earlier in the week. That said, you're going to see my model's numbers on every single game. These are the numbers that I use to bet over the course of the week. Do I think I have an edge on Sunday with my model numbers? No. I've done this show for a long time now. Don't want to lie to you and say, you got to go out and bet this. With that said, I do have some opinions that I will talk about. If I have a prop look in a game, I will give that out. I try not to give out the market number. If I give out a prop, you can assume it's good across the entire market. Basically, any sports book, you can go and bet it. Obviously, do some line shopping, look for the best price. But that is the case if I give out a prop. Of course, smash that like button down below before we get into it. Lets YouTube know that you're enjoying the content, gets it out to other people. If you could share it on your social platforms as well, that would be very much appreciated. Harley, good morning. I can't help you with any Serie A bets this morning. I don't even know who Napoli's playing today. It's been a good start to the year for them. It's very competitive at the top of the Serie A table. We're talking NFL today, and we're going to do that. All right, let's get into it. Starting with the first game. It is the Lions at the Indianapolis Colts. I'm taking a first look at market here as well. Just looking at market. So we're still hanging around 7.5 at most spots, including Fanduel. Total, depending on the shop, is 50.5 or 50 in this game. This is a really interesting one because there seems to be decent market support for both sides. We haven't really seen this number fluctuate all that much over the course of the week. I'll start with Detroit. Sam Laporta is in. Now, obviously, this is a step up versus the Jacksonville Jaguars defense that they destroyed last week. I know that there's a lot of trends over time that would indicate, whenever one team blows out another, you typically want to oppose them in market next week because the line is inflated or whatever. I don't see a lot of inflation here. I just see this as being generally the right number. I think you have pretty good advantage for the Detroit O-line against any team, pretty much, especially when they're traveling on the road. I could see them run the ball. I could see them pass the ball. The Colts defense is a little bit better than people give them credit for because they had a lot of injuries early on this year. But the Lions, if it comes down to it in a road game, their offensive line can dominate. They can run the ball on anyone. So this to me would be whether or not the Colts can keep pace. Your left tackle, Bernard Raymond, is out again. To me, that is a decent-sized blow. Matt Goncalves there backs up at tackle. Not the best. You do have some key injuries on the Detroit defense. Alex Anzalone is IR'd. Jack Campbell probably take over that middle linebacker spot. Terrion Arnold out with a groin injury. That hurts the cornerback depth a little bit. The Lions have a very strong run defense this year. It'll be interesting to see how that performs without Anzalone in the lineup. Indy has run the ball better with Jonathan Taylor when Anthony Richardson has been the quarterback, but that's pretty much the key to success in this game, in my opinion. I think if the Colts become a one-dimensional passing offense, we did see Richardson have a good game last week, but I'm not sure that is what they want to turn into here. With that said, I'm actually looking at Anthony Richardson's completion props right now. FanDuel has 16.5 minus 102 to the over. I like that a little bit. I think there's a lot of game states that work out here. But you look at the spread of the game, there's a pretty high likelihood that Indy will be chasing the game at some point or another. Secondly, we really saw him improved accuracy last week, a little bit of simpler route concepts for the Indianapolis offense. I like that quite a bit. Sam, it's a great, Terry and Arnold is like the pass interference king. Still going to hurt them quite a bit. Adonai Mitchell, 10.5 receiving yards, too low. Let me take a quick look on that one. I don't want to say off the top of my head, it does seem that way, but I didn't bet much Adonai Mitchell at all this week. Yeah, I think 10.5 is slightly too low, honestly. Good look there, in my opinion, on AD Mitchell. All right. Not much for me to do in this game. I'm pretty much on market. I'll just be interested to see how it plays out. I know this is like a very sharp versus square type of sentiment in market, but again, there's someone sharp that's holding Detroit up in this game. It hasn't just been one-way action towards Indianapolis. I think you're getting a battle on both sides in this game. And I can see the argument for the Lions as well, which is that they just cover at an elite rate and find ways to continuously blow out teams. Second game on the list, Kansas City and Carolina. Taking a look at current market right now. Saw some 11s pop up in market yesterday. There's still a few, 10.5 right now at Fanduel. Total's been bet up this week, up to 43.5 at Fanduel, 43 in most other shops as well. Another game where I don't really have a lot of interest in. I do have like a decent amount of volume this week, but it's mostly smaller bets and stuff that came earlier on in this week. This is not a game that I was ever in range on in any capacity once the initial move on that over 41.5 that was posted. We can start with Carolina's offense. Ike Ekwonu returns at left tackle. It seems like Adam Thielen, 3 times limited with the hamstring injury, going to play this week. Probably Jonathan Brooks in the backfield as well. It's an interesting matchup because you're starting to get Carolina as a much healthier team. It's night and day versus what they were a month ago. But in this particular matchup, you need Bryce Young to actually do something. And Bryce Young looked fine last time out against the Giants. Moved the ball through the air a little bit. KC does have a pass funnel defense. They're giving up a lot through the air. They're not generating pressure at the clip that they were earlier this year. Can Bryce Young beat that? Because the likelihood that they're going to find a running game in this game is pretty low. KC's been very strong against the run all season long. They don't give up much on the ground. I still think Carolina will try to run it with Chuba Hubbard. That's like the Dave Canales MO, but not sure how much success they will have. As a prop look, I do like Chuba Hubbard over on his receiving yards in this game. Saw him get 6 targets last time out. His targets have been increasing. Miles Sanders is injured. He will be on the field in a lot of passing downs, which is important. I think 13.5 for the amount of usage that he will get is a little bit too low. Early Bird says Young over 176.5 is light. I tend to agree with that as well. I did play some Bryce Young overs. It's uncomfortable, but again, we have an 11 or 10.5 point spread in this game. It's likely that Carolina's trailing. Their best path to success in the game on offense is through the air. I hate it, but I do agree, Early Bird, that is a decent look for this particular game. Other side of things, KC has some blocking issues on the outside. Carolina's not necessarily going to be the team that's going to exploit that. I do think Kansas City, the way that they've run their offense this year, which is death by 1,000 cuts, probably works pretty well against this Panthers defense. I do upgrade the Panthers defense a little bit based off of bodies that have returned over the last several weeks, but I think this is a fair market price. If I had to pick something in pools where the number's 10.5, I'll probably take Carolina. I think it's just a little bit more contrarian if you're in a larger type of pool. But aside from that, Don't have a ton. Thoughts on Coker under 2.5 receptions? I'll hit some of these questions as I go this week. I actually kind of like this as well. I have a pretty substantial edge on this. FanDuel's minus 144. There's some minus 130 in market though on Coker under. I don't hate that look. Yeah, I don't mind that at all. Obviously, Thielen, Liggett, David Moore's there as a potential third option as well, who might split some time with Coker. But based off of the snap count I'm projecting for him, I like that as well. All right, let's get to another game here. This one's interesting to me. Vikings and Bears, AFC North matchup. I am quite a bit off market on this game. So I like Minnesota relative to the current line. Definitely a ton of opposition in market. So the Bears got slammed this morning. I'm just looking at the screen right now. Market making books are flat -3. Total 39.5. Got bet up a little bit since Friday. Easy to understand why this game has a split opinion. I think if going into the week, I talked about this with Clive a little bit last week, but seemed very much like a game that would have a split opinion because you have one game for the Bears under the new OC regime, new offense, basically, and they looked much better than in previous weeks. Really tough game to handicap overall. So for me, first and foremost, the situational stuff that people talk about often drives me crazy because it's stuff that's been priced in for a long time now, or over time has just not mattered to the extent that it used to in the past. I say this all the time, like stop handicapping games like it's 2005, third straight road game for Minnesota. We've seen the effects of lots of these situational spots just reduce over the years. Why? I don't have the hypothesis as to how it happened, but I think travel is generally better. Teams have gotten smarter about these types of situations overall. So forget about that for 1 second. Now, the Bears offense, it looks like DeAndre Swift's going to give it a go today. Their left guard, Ryan Bates, is out. Tevin Jenkins is going to play, though. Tevin Jenkins is solid. So no issues on the O-line. And there's an argument to be made. Okay, Chicago looked really bad when they had these O-line injuries. Now they have their O-line back and healthy. They might be able to thrive in this type of scenario. Well, we look at what the Bears did really well last week. They ran the ball pretty well. DeAndre Swift, 14 for 71. Caleb Williams was mixed in the running game as well. That's not going to work on Minnesota. Minnesota's got the best rush defense in the league. They give up a successful run just over 30% of the time. You can't really run on this team. So that now makes it Caleb Williams having to throw in this game. They simplified the offense a little bit last week, despite what Caleb Williams says, and that it wasn't. It looked much more simplified when I was looking at the route charts and things of that nature, but they were especially getting the ball out of his hands quickly. Now, that's probably the best path to success against the Brian Flores defense. But now all of this stuff from a week ago is on tape. Like the new offense, it caught, I don't want to say it caught the Packers off guard last week, but these changes are now known by the opposing DC. I like Flores a lot. I think he's going to confuse the hell out of Caleb Williams, who really has been a one-read quarterback this year. That is a problem. On the other side, I think the decline of the Minnesota offense has been largely overstated. I watched back Minnesota-Tennessee this week because Minnesota had some really poor offensive numbers in that game. They actually ran an extremely conservative offense. I think the reason was they got out to an early lead. They're up 16-3 in that game, and Tennessee basically showed no signs of scoring. So it looked to me like a much more conservative Vikings game plan than you usually see. I think part of that was who was on the other side of the ball. And then once Tennessee scored that bomb touchdown to Nick Westbrook-Akine down the sideline, then they went back into their normal offense again. They drove for a touchdown. I think the numbers for Minnesota's offense look a lot more suppressed from last week just because of how they played it. And you go back to previous weeks, there's obviously been some backbreaking turnovers by Sam Darnold. But the last 5 weeks in the NFL, he's third in success rate. He's basically league average in EPA. That's the turnovers. Can he avoid those? We'll see. But they have moved the ball fairly efficiently. It's just been turnovers that have killed them from an EPA standpoint. So personally, understand that there is a lot of money, game day money on the Bears. We're not talking about peanuts. This is someone who's very successful at betting the NFL that's moving the entire market for a large bet size. I'm aware of that. With that said, my opinion is that I disagree. And my numbers show an edge towards the Minnesota Vikings in this game. All right, before we get continued on here, a reminder, make sure you bet the NFL season on Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. I'm a big fan of Fanduel in general. Has a very user-friendly interface. They're a very innovative product. Great lines on a lot of the props that we talk about here on Forward Progress, especially the anytime touchdown scorer market. They set the standard, in my opinion, for what a top-tier sportsbook should be. Right now, all customers get a profit boost every single NFL game day. That means you can pump up your gridiron winnings multiple times a week. Today is Sunday. There's a same-game parlay profit boost token on any game on the slate today. It's not just Sunday Night Football. SGP profit boost token on any game on the slate today. FanDuel has tons of ways you can get in on the NFL action. You can bet money line, spreads, player props, and more. Plus, with super simple live betting, lightning fast bet settlement, and instant withdrawals, FanDuel makes betting on the NFL easier than ever before. Just visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress to download FanDuel today. You must be 21 plus and present in select states or 18 plus and present in DC. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration. See terms for offers at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. And once again, I do want to remind you, make sure you bet within your limits today. If you struggle in the early slate, don't need to chase in the late slate. Still a long season, lots of stuff to bet. Bet within your limits. Okay, let's move it on here to the fourth game on our slate. Cowboys and Commanders. Lots of injury information to parse in this particular game. Got some stuff handed down yesterday. Moved Washington from a 10-point favorite to a 10.5-point favorite. I find this to be an extremely challenging game to model. Now, for all of you who know me, you know that I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. If it's your first time watching, welcome. Hit that like button and subscribe on Forward Progress. But I am a Cowboys fan. I do think very impartially when it comes to the team. I'm a bettor first and foremost, a fan second. And you got to just remove the fandom from the equation. I've bet against the Cowboys pretty frequently this season. I think the market now has finally caught up. Maybe I'm wrong, and this could still be a Commanders blowout. You do have a lot of injuries on the Dallas offense. You have Jake Ferguson out. It's a drop off there to Luke Schoonmaker and Brevin Spanford. Brandon Cooks was taken off IR, but he's not going to play today. He's eligible to return, but he's still missing with his knee injury. You had some injuries on the offensive line that were concerning. Tyler Guyton's good to go. It looks like Tyler Smith is going to play today, despite his knee injury. Zach Martin is the one that is out at right guard. Zach Martin has dropped off this year from previous years, but there's still going to be a downgrade there. Marshawn Lattimore not going for Washington. I do think the Commanders' defense is pretty overrated. I think a lot of times you go into the year with an expectation that one unit might be terrible, and then they end up not being terrible, and people confuse themselves into thinking that the unit is actually good. There's been a lot of talk this year about Washington's defense. I mean, it's not a good defense. They're 27th in EPA per play. They're 27th in EPA per drive. They're 26th in havoc rate. They're 26th in passer rating to opposing quarterbacks. 26th in third down conversion rate, 31st in EPA per rush. The last one is what I want to focus on, though, because there is a path to success for teams on the Washington defense where they can just run the ball down Washington's throat. As the game went on against Philly last week, Saquon kind of did that, iced the game. The Cowboys are not necessarily the team that's going to be able to do that. And that's why I don't find them so appealing as an underdog here. They've tried to establish the run with Rico Dowdle this year. It just doesn't work. They don't really have a true number one running back, and this O-line can't protect enough. The other side is concerning in terms of the way that Washington has kind of declined in recent weeks offensively, whether that's a Jaden Daniels injury or just playing good defenses. This is a defense that's very exploitable. Trayvon Diggs is out, but Deron Bland is back from injury. Jordan Lewis is back. So it's kind of a wash. You get two corners for the price of one. Dallas is not deep at corner, but it at least gives you some reinforcements. Now, this will tell us a lot about the Washington offense, in my opinion, this particular game. Whether it's just been because they've played the Eagles and Steelers back-to-back, or whether the league is starting to catch up. Jaden Daniels might be hurt. But overall, I go back to the Giants game 3 weeks ago. They, moved the ball fairly consistently in that game. They generated 27 points. I think there's still very clearly a path to success for the Washington offense here. Mark, Ekshesh, I can never pronounce your name. I'm sorry, bud. Market is pretending JD is not injured. I kind of, I'm kind of there right now in watching things back. Not a game I want a huge piece of right here, but as a Cowboys fan right now, I kind of just got to root for them to lose at this point. Tyler Smith ruled out. I'm just going to get a update on this just to make sure, because then we got real problems with that O-line. The Cowboys O-line has been a disaster this year. I actually don't even know who would play guard at that point. TJ Bass will play guard on one side, but I think the backup center, Brock Hoffman, will probably play guard on the other. That is a rough interior. So I talked Kami's team total on Wednesday's Best Bets show, and I bet this. Everything I talk about, especially earlier in the week, is stuff that I bet. I have real money on. I thought the situation for Dallas's secondary would be more dire this week than it actually is. I don't hate it. I'm stuck on it. There's no reason for me to buy off or anything like that. But as of this morning, I wouldn't be as excited as I was earlier on in the week. Okay. Bucks and Giants. First game today where there's like a little bit of weather concern. It's a bit windy. You're looking at roughly 15 mile an hour winds, gusts up to 25 miles an hour. Another tough game to handicap. I do think Tampa Bay continues to be pretty underrated in market. Like when we look at Tampa Bay's schedule, they have faced an absolute gauntlet of teams. Their last four games were 49ers, Chiefs, Falcons, Ravens. Prior to that, they played the Saints. That was, I think, kind of like a comparable game to today, where Spencer Rattler played quarterback for the Saints. There was definitely a lot of injuries on the New Orleans side, and Tampa Bay just crushed them in that game. Little bit of market movement in this one over the last day or so. Actually, we're pretty much 6 across the board. Fanduel 6.5 right now. Kind of think this is where the price needs to be in this game. I have Tommy DeVito. I think I might have already called him Danny DeVito. If I did, apologies. I'm going to do that a million times. Tommy DeVito's pretty bad. Like that's, you look at the Tampa Bay defense going into this game, and there's still a lot to parse here in the cornerback room in terms of who's going to play. Zion McCollum dealing with a hamstring injury. Tyke Smith, I don't think is going to play. He's got that knee injury still. Jamel Dean activated off IR. He got 3 full practices in this week. Seems poised to return. Troy Hill dealing with a hamstring injury. There's a lot of moving parts there in the secondary, but we've seen DeVito now, right? This isn't like the first or second game in where DeVito was like kind of caught the league by surprise. This happens a lot in the NFL. You get an unknown quarterback who comes in. There's not a lot of tape. They look successful for 1 or 2 games, and then you just see this drastic drop off. And we saw that with DeVito. Only 3 quarterbacks in the last 3 years have a worse success rate. Trace McSorley, Skylar Thompson, Tim Boyle. And if you look at EPA per play over the past 3 years, I'll list off quarterbacks that have been better than DeVito. PJ Walker, Bryce Young, Zach Wilson, Colt McCoy, Deshaun Watson. Better than DeVito, EPA per play wise. So it's hard for me to see the upside in the Giants offense in this particular game. He was horrible in the last two starts that he had last year. He had a 24% success rate and a 22% success rate back-to-back. Horrible. Going up against a good defensive coach today, I don't know that I see the path to success. For the Bucs offense, have no idea what the Mike Evans involvement in the game is going to be. You're getting conflicting reports from different insiders. We do know Tristan Wirfs is out. That is a concerning injury against the Giants' defensive front. Justin School, likely to play left tackle there today. You have Kayvon Thibodeau back as well in the Giants' front seven. This, to me, has to be a Giants' defensive game if they're going to keep it close. Almost like there's some sort of correlation there where if I was going to take the Giants getting 6, I would take the under and parlay them together as well. But I don't have a strong feeling for this game. Subjectively, and this is why I run model numbers on the game and I just don't use my eye. Subjectively, I think the Bucs should roll the Giants. But my model does have DeVito being pretty bad and this being a fine line. So that's where I'm at right now. Carlos says no Wirfs. Most likely Giants defensive line can dominate. I would tend to agree with you. Feels like a 27-6 Bucs win. Honestly, pretty close to what it feels like in my head as well. But that's that. Okay. Patriots and Dolphins. This is a game where I am waiting on a lot more information to make a final number. My best bet on Wednesday Best Bets this week was the over in this game. I still stand by that. There's a couple moving parts, though. One on the Patriots side, which is Christian Gonzalez at cornerback, and the other on the Miami side, which is Teron Armstead at left tackle. Last I saw, before I came on air, Gonzalez came out onto the field and was practicing for the team. But don't know if he's going to play. It's kind of like testing it out in the early going. Teron Armstead, dealing with a nagging injury, did not practice this week. This has been the case for him now, going back to last year. And he sometimes plays, he sometimes doesn't. There's a lot of moving parts in this game overall. What I do know is that Miami's offense, since Tua has returned, has been pretty good. He's leading the league right now in EPA per dropback, 0.37 EPA per dropback. He's looking solid since he came back. What's happened to the offense? Well, it's a lot of shorter passes and using the explosiveness of their receivers to pick up extra yardage. The Patriots play a high rate of man coverage relative to the rest of the league. You got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle against man coverage, possibly not Gonzalez. Although Justin says Gonzalez gave a thumbs up, so he's probably going to go in this game. But you have a Miami offense that's been pretty efficient since Tua has returned. I do think the Dolphins will score in this game. I do think that they'll be able to move the ball in this defense. Patriots defense has been upgraded in the last week or so with some defensive reinforcements. I still think that this is a very good opportunity for Miami to move the ball. Other side, Kendall Fuller out again on the Miami defense. Here's the thing with New England. they're passing a lot in neutral game state. And it's increasing on a weekly basis. This isn't a team that waits to fall behind before they start passing the ball. They're passing the ball more heavily with Drake May as quarterback. And if you look at the Patriots offense with Drake May at quarterback, they've basically been a league average offense in terms of EPA per play and EPA per dropback. And now they're throwing at a higher rate. And we saw this against the Rams last week as well. Rams defense is very underrated. They moved the ball in that game. Granted, that being at home. But without Kendall Fuller on the Miami side, there's holes in the secondary opposite Jalen Ramsey. I do see this as being a higher scoring game than anticipated. I'm slightly above market in terms of this total. I bet the over. I'll be rooting for the over. Pretty decent sized rooting interest for me today. Although nothing is going to compare to the Packers. We'll get there shortly. Okay. Tennessee and Houston. Oh, sorry. Before we do, good question from Jason. Who would Gonzalez be covering? Gonzalez doesn't really move across the field and shadow anyone. So it's not a strict one-on-one for those who are playing props. Armstead, Gonzalez, both active. So they kind of, thank you, Max. Really appreciate it. Was waiting on that information. That's what I have priced into this game. So you can trust the model number price. Let's go forward now. Tennessee and Houston. Market hanging around -7.5 or at -7.5, -115 Fanduel. This total has been bet down this week, which is totally understandable. I mean, I'm not in the business of saying go out and you know, bet the total now at this point. I don't think it moved enough, but let's go through this. The Titans, if you go through their schedule this year, every time they've taken like a step up in class, Bills, Packers, Lions, Vikings, they've gotten smoked in every one of those games. Now, does that apply necessarily to Houston? I don't know just yet. Here's what I do know. Tennessee's offense against the Houston defense, big mismatch that favors the Texans. Tyjae Spears is out with a concussion. Normally, I would never talk about backup running backs, but I think he's a pretty dynamic player out of the backfield. Leroy Watson, the right tackle, is out. Now, there's not a steep drop-off there to Nicholas Petit-Frere. They both are bad, but Tennessee's choosing to start Watson. So, slight downgrade. Will Anderson back. Kamari Lassiter back at corner. It's a very good defensive unit against an offense that just cannot generate. They're not getting good quarterback play. You're going to have Stingley on Calvin Ridley a lot in this game. And bad O-line, I don't really see the path to success. One player, just from a prop perspective, I don't have a lot of props today, by the way, but Chiggy Okonkwo on the Titans side of the ball is getting way more targets, snap counts, and looks recently. His receiving yardage is in like the 17.5 range. I like that to the over in this particular game. Just pure usage, again, projecting based off of snap count, plus the fact that they're likely to be trailing in the game. Other side of the ball, L'Jarius Sneed is out. Roger McCreary, their slot corner, is banged up. I think he's going to go, but got to monitor that one because he went DNP, limited practice. He's got a knee injury. The Texans offense wasn't that great. I know they beat the Cowboys 34-10, but it wasn't like they just turned back into the offense of old with Nico Collins. There's still some poor play calling, a lot of early down running. At this point, I talk about it every week, but it's very predictable. Tennessee's defense is better than they are given credit for. They hold up for long periods of the game, and then eventually the offense isn't on the field enough. They kind of die out in the second half of a lot of these games. That's what's happened recently. I think the number is kind of fair in this game. Until we see more out of the Houston offense or some sort of change in dynamic with the way that they call plays. And additionally, the way that they call plays, specifically when they are ahead in games, it's weird for me to say Houston's not built to blow teams out when they do have the firepower that they have, and they just blew out the Cowboys on Monday Night Football, but they tend to let teams hang around. This is a tendency with defensive coordinators who are hired as head coaches who tend to trust their defense a little bit more late in games. All right, late slate. AFC West, Broncos and Raiders. This was up at 6 for the last couple days. We've finally seen the resistance point where we get Raiders money. That is 6. Market is now at 5.5. All the 41s in market look to be gone for the total, up to 41.5, which would be a little bit disappointing if you just if you wanted to take the over, 41 being a key number. Talked about this a lot this week, and I'm not going to spend too much time here now. I mean, I do think that the 5.5 is a little bit valuable for Denver, but again, it's game day. Marcus decided my price is not super far off. It's not something that I would want to go ham on at this point. You got this cluster injury situations for the Raiders in the backfield and the defensive backfield. Jack Jones dealing with the back injury. Jacordian Bennett is out. Nate Hobbs is out. We'll have to wait on the Jack Jones status. I do expect him to play, but if he doesn't, you're missing top 3 cornerbacks for the Raiders. And we saw this kind of matchup last week with Denver. They took on a Falcons team that was down 3 of their top 4 corners. And they moved the ball. Now, the Falcons don't get pressure. Here's what gets me as well. Neither do the Raiders. I know you think of the Raiders from years past. They have Max Crosby, great pass rusher there. But if we look at the Raiders' pressure numbers this year, they're not generating a lot of pressure. Bottom 8 in the entire league. So Denver's O-line's been holding up. Their tackles have been holding up. We'll see if McGlinchey can block Crosby. But if he can, there's a very clear path to success for Denver here, attacking this secondary. Other side of things, Alexander Madison not going to play. Zamir White not going to play. You have Amir Abdullah and Dylan Laube, 6th round pick from New Hampshire, that are in there. Someone said in the chat, Abdullah over 32.5 feels light. No. Totally agree. In the rushing yards game, he's at, I think, 33.5 cross market now. No, we got 32.5. Sorry, right at Fanduel. That does feel light. The Raiders do want to run the ball. They don't have the personnel to do it. You have to figure Abdullah is going to get a decent number of carries in this game. It's just a matter of whether he can hit that yardage number, because their run game is not very good. But I do think that this one is low. Minshew doesn't have an O-line. He's going to be behind that O-line against a defense that gets pressure at a top 5 rate in the league. He can be effective at times, but he's very inconsistent. I think it'll be a lot of quick throws again. Saw Brock Bowers have a huge game last week. That's kind of the path for the Raiders offense to move the ball nowadays. I just don't know that they can continuously do it. Jalen Coker inactive. There goes a prop bet. That one is completely void at this point. Abdullah is everyone's favorite prop this week, it feels like. Yeah, I honestly don't know. I'm not involved in... Sounds very egotistical. I don't seek out other people's opinions enough to know who's being bet and what's not. I just kind of look at the market movement. But I think there's some reasons to certainly like Abdullah this week. Producer Jason disagrees. Arizona and Seattle. This will be an interesting game. Most of the market-making books have this as a pick. At FanDuel, I mean, technically our money line price is minus 108 both sides as well. But Seattle small favorites in the game. Total has come down here on game day. Looks like it's going to rain. What else is new in Seattle? Just checking the forecast right now. I'm not a meteorologist, but I do know how to read football weather forecasts. Seems like there's going to be an abundance of rain in this game, but not anything that's crazy. Just wanted to point that out because it is a weather game. This is another game I've seen this week where there are I'll call it the sharp community, but it's not really a sharp. It's just people that I deal with on the NFL that are winners are on other sides of this game. I think the number's fine. I would rather have Arizona than Seattle. I get the case for Seattle. Seattle is healthier than they have been. They're in a long time. You look at that midseason run for the Seahawks, they're missing multiple players in the front seven. Their offensive line was in shambles, especially at right tackle. It's not the case anymore. Really, all they have is a backup center going today, and that's because Connor Williams retired. But Abe Lucas played well at right tackle last week, which is big for Geno. Pressure off the outside. Defense is fully healthy. I'm just a big believer in what Arizona is doing right now. Jonah Williams activated at right tackle off IR. This is a very explosive offense at this point. They can run the ball on everyone. Now, Seattle's rush defense, statistically speaking, is not good this year. 23rd success rate, 21st EPA. A lot of that is injuries, though. I do think they're roughly a league average run defense, but I do think Arizona can move the ball on the ground. And they have a great matchup with Trey McBride against nobody who can cover him on the Seattle side. I like James Conner in the receiving game in this particular game. Whether you want to go receptions over at 2.5 or receiving yards at 13.5, this is kind of a spot that I like to play where, especially on the road, early on, mitigate some of the crowd noise, get the ball out of Kyler's hands quickly. But Connor's extremely involved in this offense. You can go either one of these bets. I guess I slightly prefer the receiving yards. On the other side, the Cardinals defense is really tricky because they are outperforming their talent level. Jalen Thompson is out again with an ankle injury. That hurts them in the defensive backfield, especially against this trio of receivers. But what really gets me to the spot that I'm at right now with these two particular teams is Arizona is what I would call a smart team. They pick up yardage on early downs. Early down success rate is high. When they're facing third downs, it's the shortest yardage in the entire league. Whereas on the other side, Seattle does the complete opposite. They take lots of offensive penalties. Geno takes sacks. They seemingly have a drive-killing play on every drive. Be interesting to see this game today. I have some early Arizona stuff, but not much. I'm just really interested in seeing how this plays out because Arizona is being priced at the highest point in market that they've been priced all year, and Seattle is healthy now. We'll see if it makes a difference. San Fran and Green Bay. Obviously, the big news here is no Brock Purdy. Market pushed all the way out. Oh, it's even pushed out further this morning. We got Green Bay up to -6.5, -102 Fanduel. Most prices in market are 6. Totals 44.5. Listen, at the end of the day, there's really a couple of ways that you could have played this game. And I'm going to use this as like an educational lesson more than I am going to break down this game altogether. Because I think that there is a, very clear path to success here in the NFL on some injury information if you can get on top of this stuff early. Brock Purdy was on the injury report early in the week. There was already talk about him dealing with an injury. That should set off a red flag to anyone to not bet that side. I talked about this on Best Bets for Progress Wednesday. But early week injury stuff for quarterbacks, let it play out. Then all the secrecy that was happening. Wednesday, he takes the field and he does like mental reps. And they marked him as having like a limited practice. He did not practice, did not throw a ball. This is where you have to like actually just read the beat writer's tweets and what's going on. Does not throw on Wednesday. Thursday, skips his presser after the game. These are signs that, like, read the tea leaves. Something's going on. If he plays, the market's probably going to account for him being 100%. He's not going to be 100%. So at this point, I know, I'm not saying that you can't, like, Green Bay -6 can't be a valuable price. That's not what I'm suggesting, because it easily can be. Brandon Allen is not a good quarterback. And again, he's another guy like Tommy DeVito, where he's not going to catch you by surprise now. There's a lot of tape on Brandon Allen, and he's just not good. You look at his last 2 starts that he's played, he's had success rates under 30% in both starts, 28%, 26%. Yes, Kyle Shanahan has gotten good play out of backup quarterbacks in the past. Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard. But it's really tough to overcome bad quarterback play in the league. Most likely path for San Fran here. They try to run the ball at will. Trent Williams is dealing with a bad ankle injury. Even with the injuries to Jair Alexander on the Green Bay side, I don't know how much of an impact that has in this particular game. So to me, these usually play out in a manner where you capitalize on the injury information early, and then if you don't, you kind of just leave the number and potentially try to play back if you think it's a valuable price on the other side. That's usually how these play out. So for future instances, when you see quarterback on the injury report, happened with Trevor Lawrence earlier this year as well, like, pay attention to that stuff. That should be your eyes popping out of your head when you see stuff like that. On defense, no Nick Bosa, no Charvarius Ward. This defense, I say it every single week, it's just not as talented as it was in years past. You saw when Bosa went off the field last week against Seattle, they started to move the ball at will. Green Bay can be the most frustrating team. You pull your hair out. Look, I got barely any hair left from betting the Packers. They have games where the offense looks incredibly elite. They have games where Jordan Love looks like a rookie quarterback. And there's, a very large range on what this offense could be. But the 49ers defense, I already don't like it. Now you remove Bosa from the field. I think this is a very big uphill climb for the 49ers today. Finally, Sunday Night Football. I'll be live on air for this game tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. You can join me prior to the game. I will give out props leading into the game, and then me and Clive Bixby will recap the day. We'll start looking ahead to next week's numbers. But it's a good game, and one that I'm really interested in watching. It's the Eagles and the Rams for Sunday Night Football. Some injury information to process for this game. Devonta Smith is out for the Eagles offense. I think that's going to hurt them a lot in this particular game. I actually think Smith might be one of the more overrated receivers in the league. However, the depth options there are not trusted and not great. A little bit more bracket coverage towards A.J. Brown in this game. On the other side, Rob Havenstein is doubtful on the Rams O-line. That's an issue. Joe Noteboom will be back. He's better than Ward McClendon, but he also sucks. Bryce Huff went to IR this week. That's a blow, but they have plenty of depth there. I think both these defenses are pretty underrated. I know a lot of people have been looking at the Eagles schedule and saying, well, is this defense actually underrated? Have they just been getting favorable matchups? Hard to say in particular, but they do have a good D-line. It doesn't always manifest itself into sacks, but they have good rotational players here. I'm really interested in how these rookie corners will match up against Kupp and Nacua. That'll be big for this particular matchup, but they have played very well this year. Fangio, known for being a solid defensive coordinator, has finally got that defense playing well. The other side, this really comes down to whether or not the Rams D can get pressure on Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has very drastic splits when pressured versus not. And now without Devontae Smith getting open or not even getting open, being trusted for like a one-on-one ball, Hurts does do that a lot. I feel like this could be a lower scoring game than anticipated. Market has kind of come in that way. We've seen a little bit more buyback towards the over, I guess, here in the last day or so. But all in all, a pretty solid day, a solid game for us to watch on Sunday Night Football, in my opinion. Okay. Lots of people in the chat on the Eagles in that game in particular, which I get. Like, I understand it. I think Philadelphia is really good. You can argue the Rams' home field advantage is pretty much next to nothing. I just still happen to be, I think, fairly high on the Rams, maybe relative to market. All right. Let's do some anytime touchdowns. I'm actually going to be doing these on the fly today, people. Not prepared beforehand. I do want to remind you, we had like a really lucky run earlier on in the year. There's no need to go nuts with a lot of these today. Pop up your Fanduel account. And let's start with Tampa Bay and the New York Giants. This one seems to be a no-brainer for me at where it's priced right now. I typically don't go top of market. Bucky Irving plus 170 to me is a very good price for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this game today. Hard to hold down the Bucs offense. I know no left tackle, Tristan Wirfs, that's going to hurt them. But relative to market right now and relative to my price on the game, I think this is a very strong value at plus 170 on Bucky Irving. Okay. Sammy says that is actually a good price on DeVito. It is a great price on DeVito. Producer Jason wants Tommy DeVito. If you're going to bet that at FanDuel at plus 440, that is really good. Like looking across market, I see plus 275, plus 300, plus 375. 440 is great. I personally don't think that that's a good bet, though. Relative to market, I do. But I see so few scoring opportunities for DeVito today that I couldn't take that price. We start with Bucky Irving. Next spot, Detroit, Indy. I know a lot of people will be rooting against us today because it seems like Indianapolis is a pretty consensus pick in this chat. But Jameson Williams at plus 270, in my opinion, is a very good play. FanDuel plus 270. If you're shopping other books and you want to play him elsewhere, listen, like my real response would be go play him at FanDuel where he's better priced than everywhere else. But you could go and play a plus 220, and I wouldn't hate that either. But like really, really reduce the bet size if you're going to do that. Jameson Williams, Lions, throwing the ball still, trying to get Jared Goff that MVP. They're going to have some chances in this game with that O-line holding up pretty well, in my opinion. Jack says Jameson 2 TDs. Generally, when I find value on 1+, 2+ is already 2+ is there as well. Let's find a long shot on the board here as the third. Got a few options. Let's go Sunday Night Football. Let's go and lock this Rams-Eagles one in for now. Let's take Jahan Dotson at 7-1. Just seems like a valuable price with Devontae Smith being out of there. Man, some of these books are offering terrible prices on 360, 400. What a sham. 7-1. Jahan Dotson. Other ones that I considered, I'll bet them too, because I'm gonna say them now on air, and I don't want to be the guy that doesn't bet this stuff. I considered Justin Watson at 9-1 for the Chiefs. Guy never scores. Why would I bet 9-1? Should be 900-1. Yeah, I don't know. 9-1 stands up. Page. And I considered DJ Turner of the Las Vegas Raiders at plus 750. If you want to go from 3 to 5. That's one of the reasons you got to play here. Especially anytime touchdown scores. Got to play here. Have you considered that Dotson is a bad football player? I have considered. Everything relative to price, people. Just remember that. I will make a bet on anything in the NFL if you give me the price to do it. Just remember that. Okay, I'll take any questions that anyone has. Anyone have research on Rob's record when not wearing a metal band tee? I don't know. We should actually do something like that. Be completely irrelevant, but I would be interested to see that. What price would you need on a Bears DTD? Good question. Not equipped to answer that right now. Wish I could. It would involve me running some numbers. It would slow down the stream. Can't do it. Maybe I'll message you on the side, Levi, on Twitter. Yeah, last one is DJ Turner. DJ Turner. Producer Jason. Oh, he's doing the inverse correlation. Jordan Addison. I like these looks. Yeah. You pull it up, Jason. Put that on screen. Oh, you took it off. So you're looking 80 plus yards plus under on his receptions. Okay, so I like this for a few different players, but Jamison Williams is one I love to play these on. Jordan Addison is another. Nick Westbrook-Ikine is also one guy that I like to play those on. Love those. Best teaser play. Okay, so let's take a look at the board really quickly. By now, you should know what a Wong teaser is. If you don't, you should look up a Wong teaser because you want to maximize the value of your teaser by going through the key numbers of 7 and 3. So Houston would fit the mold. Miami would fit the mold. I'm just saying what fits the mold, and then we can talk about this a little bit further. Depending on your sportsbook, maybe Arizona or Seattle, possibly the Rams. I'm not one that will blindly bet the Wong teasers every week. I believe that some games have a wider range of outcomes than others. So I like to look at games where, listen, the closing number is a closing number in every game. But in some games, we have less information to process. And I believe in the accuracy of that closing number a lot more. So honestly, your best bets are probably Houston and Miami. Houston, Tennessee specifically, there's not a lot of injury stuff to process there. It's pretty easy to set a number on that game. And the market really hasn't moved off of it all week. Saw a little bit of money towards Tennessee at 8.5, but we've stuck at 7.5, 8. Same with Miami, New England. My numbers directionally lean New England, but Miami, again, has been in this range all week. We don't get any new injury information because Teron Armstead and Christian Gonzalez are both playing. So I think those are the best options available to you right now. Any alternate markets you like? I did play a few alts. This is tough in real time because everything is associated with price. But there's a few things that I like. I like Minnesota alternate numbers. We've already seen Chicago's offense get stuck in the mud at times before. Like that one quite a bit and played some of those. I also played some Rams alternate numbers with the Rams winning by more than a touchdown. All right. Thoughts on Bears Vikings over 47.5 plus 285. Let me do a quick scan of that. My fare is 271. So I guess yes, but not like a huge edge that I would be running out to play. You're going to get burned by the birds. Again, it's not really like an opinion on is purely price play on the Rams against the Eagles. I think the Eagles are a very good team. Really good football team. Everything relative to price is what it comes down to. All right. I think that's it for me. I'm back here tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Join me. I'll fire off a bunch of prop bets for the Rams-Eagles game. Clive Bixby joins me in the first half, and we're going to do the usual run-through of the Week 13 NFL card, including Thanksgiving Day games this upcoming week. Get some early line value. Join me tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time. If you haven't smashed that like button, smash that like button down below. If you're first time here, sub here on Forward Progress as well. I do this every single week. Love to break down the board for everyone. I'm pretty invested in Green Bay today. Would like the Packers to not disappoint me. Pretty much will decide my day. We'll see what kind of mood I'm in tonight based off of today's games. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I wish you the best of luck on your bets. Unless you're opposite me, then I do not wish you luck. I hope you lose those bets, but I hope you win the rest of yours. I'll see you back here tonight. This has been the Pizza Buffet, Week 12 in the NFL here on Forward Progress, presented by Fanduel. Peace. Good luck, everyone, today. See you later on.